Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Southern California housing market update. This is for July 6th, 2021. Obviously, we have just completed the Independence Day holiday. I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend. And it kind of brings up a question that we get a lot of times during the holiday weekends. How do holiday weekends affect our statistics? Actually, I don't like comment frame. I want to be a little more frame. There we go. How do holiday weekends affect sort of our real estate statistics? Do people stop buying houses? And I'm going to kind of go through and tell you what we have observed over the years when we're looking at statistics, especially in our Southern California market. And the first notion is that I think a lot of people assume, they say, does the real estate market stop? And I don't think that's the right question to ask. I think the right question to ask is, do sellers continue to put their properties in the market, and do buyers continue to buy properties? And the answer to those two questions, I think, is different. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll kind of weave that into our conversation today. I am actually super excited for some of these stats, and I'll kind of tell you what I think they mean if you're a buyer and if you are a seller. Let's see. We're not seeing our stats here, so not sure why we're not seeing that. Let me see if I can find out why our normal stats are not showing up here. Let me see if I can try this again for everybody. Nope, still not working. I will figure this out though, I promise. Just give me a couple of seconds here. A little bit of a technical difficulty. We normally have such good luck with screen sharing and don't really have like a lot of issues. So just give me a couple seconds here to close out a couple windows, because obviously we want to go through the numbers. That's what our videos are about. They are about going through the numbers. So, all right, let's see here if we can't go ahead and figure out why we're not seeing this. I think here I've got the solution to our problem. Just give me a second real quick. And we go into slide mode there. There we go. Now I think we are going to be okay. So let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so let's rewind back to the beginning here. Our total active listings. So this is interesting to me because a couple reasons. Number one, we just went through a week where we're going to show this, where we had very greatly reduced listing activity, and yet total actives has gone up for under $1 million homes, and has gone down for $1 to $2 million homes. So everyone remember, this is for Los Angeles and Orange counties. Down here, we run our stats on a weekly basis. You can see back from the beginning of the year, we went kind of a low point of inventory through March, and then it steadily increased, and it dropped again, and then it kind of went back up as we see. I think what's so remarkable about these charts is just that we're not seeing big fluctuations in inventory. Maybe a little bit of more of a fluctuation here in our 1 to 2 million. We're actually seeing an upward trend. I think for a home buyer, this is good news that we have seen that number creep up. And what that tells me is, this tells me that a whole bunch of people waited to put their homes on the market until over holiday weekend or yesterday. So I'm going to go off screen share because I think it's easier to use my hands to show this. So what I think is going on, and what we're seeing here, is that during the week before a holiday weekend, right, I think people who are putting their homes on the market put everything on pause, right? They say, okay, I'm just not going to list my house. I'm going to wait until Monday. We're going to put it on Monday, or we're going to put it on Tuesday. So what they did is they essentially delayed their listing. They didn't not do their listing, they delayed their listing. And that's the reason why this total inventory number came up, because I am willing to bet that most of these active ones that you see came active in the last 3 days, and they haven't had a chance to get offers and review them and do all that stuff yet. So I don't think our inventory really has gone up this much. I think it's a timing issue. Okay, so moving on to our new listings, right? This is definitely, this one is I think there's kind of a lot here under both of these. In the last 14 days, the number of new listings has plummeted quite a bit. I mean, I would say this is over a 10% drop week to week, right? And of course, that begs the question, is this some kind of trend? I don't really think it is a trend for the reason I just stipulated. I think, we run our stats as of yesterday. So that means anybody who put their market on the home on the market today, maybe somebody was going to put it on last week, but said it's a holiday weekend. I don't want to do that. Those are not included in these numbers. So the real telling statistic will be, how much does this move up next week? Because if it doesn't move up much next week, then we know, no, maybe now we're at a permanently lower level of new homes coming on the market. So remember, this is our 14-day new listing. These are new homes coming on the market, or our supply coming into the marketplace. And if you see if this number were accurate, I mean, this really hits with a couple of low weeks that we've had. But if you want to go look back organically, this is like back to February's market. We actually see something similar over here, except that this has risen in a much more linear fashion, I feel like, right? There's this long-term trend for our $1 to $2 million listings. Now, if we look at our new escrows, though, this is the part that I think is interesting. So new listings, huge drop. New escrows, which is buyers, not a huge drop. What does that tell us, right? Well, to me, what that tells us is that buyers don't take a break for the holidays, not nearly as much as sellers do. Now, buyers still go out of town, but I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story. I have a client. We are looking in a particular neighborhood. I'm not going to say where it is, but we're looking in a particular neighborhood, and a home came on the market as a coming soon listing. Now, in our market, coming soon listings are most of the market we serve. Coming soon listings are not showable. Like, they are there, you learn about them, but they have a showing. You can't show them until later. We had one that came on the market on the 4th of July. Now, what do you think every buyer who has been frustrated in this market trying to find a house did on the 4th of July when they saw this new home come on the market? They texted their agent, of course. And what did all the agents do? Well, number one, they were probably a little bit annoyed, 4th of July. But number two, they went and reached out to that listing agent. Now, of course, the listing agent usually doesn't reply, or they reply with something saying, I will talk to you tomorrow, right? So, the lesson here in this is that there's a huge disconnect, I think, between where listing agents and sellers are and where buyers are. And what I mean by that is, sellers said, hey, it's a holiday weekend. Let's take that weekend off. We want to get the most exposure. And buyers said, I don't care what day it is. A new house has come on the market that I want to see, and I want to get in there if at all possible. And that disconnect in the market, I think, really explains a lot of the behaviors and the trouble that we're seeing. So what do we do when we reconcile our supply and demand? We get our absorption rate. Now, remember, this is a 14-day sort of rolling figure. And the reason why we do it as a 14-day figure is because that attempts to smooth out some of the jumps from week to week. Excuse me, it's a little dry there. And look what happened in both our under 1 million and our $1 to $2 million categories. So for our 1 to 2 million, we moved up to maybe just shy of an 80% absorption rate. And for our under 1 million, look at where we headed, right towards 90%. Now, we saw a very similar figure in our first-time home buyer market update last Friday. And, I think some of this may be the holiday weekend, right? Some of this may be those disproportionate behaviors and reactions from buyers and sellers. But I think some of this might be real, that our market did get a little bit more competitive. Now, just as a reminder for everyone, this is by no means a hard rule, but 70 to 80% absorption rate is a seller's market. 80 to 90 is a very strong seller's market, and 90 and above is pretty much a circus. Tons of offers on every listing, people doing whatever, saying whatever to get their offers accepted. So, I really want to see what happens next week with this number. Does this ease back down? Or are we just now back to 90%? How much of this is holiday weekend lack of inventory coming on the market? And how much of this is buyers actually being more exuberant and that demand supply balance being more out of whack. This, I think, was really interesting to me. And one of the things we talk about, and I give this disclaimer every time on closed prices, is that these are based on contracts from 4 to 6 weeks ago. But look at what we have, right? Our entry level, a slight jump, maybe not even jump, small increase. Our median, which is kind of in this 800,000-ish range, a slight decrease. But look at the last 2 weeks in our upper end 75th percentile. That's a pretty strong decrease. And that tells us a lot about how sometimes these price ranges don't move together, right? I believe that the entry level market is the hottest, right? And understand that you can extrapolate these results based on sort of where median prices are in your area. And let me use a good example of that. So in our chart here, our median price is around 800,000. I actually think in Orange County, it's a little bit higher than that. And I think that, 800,000 might be a little bit more towards our entry level market in Orange County, more towards this 25th percentile, right? So that market might have actually seen some increases. That market might be a bit more competitive than it would be in, say, Palmdale or Lancaster, where, boy, 800,000 might be towards the high end of the market in Palmdale and Lancaster, which are part of Los Angeles counties. So just bear that in mind when you take a look at these charts, that you really need to kind of apply these to sort of where the prices are in your area. Now, if you don't know where the prices are in your area, reach out to us and I will be happy to tell you where those 25th median and 75th percentiles are. This is our 14-day still active percentage. Lower means a more competitive market. Now, what I find interesting here is that this number actually went up for our under 1 million. And this is kind of another piece of evidence that what we've seen is that the listings, especially at the low end, have been withheld in the market. And then a lot of those came on the market in the last couple of days, right? People did not put them on last week. Instead, they waited until the 4th of July or later to put those listings on the market, and they have not had a chance to be snapped up just yet. So I'm not really sure that this is as much of a market movement as it looks like it is. Before we go into this, I want to talk a little bit about list to close ratio and why that's such a tricky and interesting figure. Some of you have made comments to me privately, usually, that sometimes it sounds like I argue the pros and the cons of things, and that I won't say something completely definitive, and that I will say something that is almost contradictory. And there's a very good reason for that. One of the most important things you can do when you are reviewing real estate statistics is understand that there is more than one explanation for why numbers move in a certain direction. And I think that's really important. And the reason why it's important is because if you believe there is only one explanation, you invariably will believe that your explanation is the correct one. And that is a very quick way to be blindsided by things. We try to think out the market kind of from both directions. So we'll say, is the market getting more competitive or is it getting less competitive? Make a case for both using the data. And then we'll talk about what case seems like it's the stronger one. And that's something we do both internally, and we kind of talk it out a little bit when we do these videos, because I want you as the viewers to have a sense. And I want you to have a sense of sort of thinking and being very critical of this market data, because I think that's really important to understand where you are, kind of evaluate and keep reevaluating. Okay. Jumping back in here, our close to list ratio. And this is one of those things where there are multiple explanations. Why did it drop quite a bit? And I think we talked about this being unsustainable. And one of the things that I've seen in the market is that sellers are wising up, right? Sellers are getting the idea, they're getting the idea right that they can price at almost whatever and people will come look at their house. And the net result of that is that is going to result in this close to list ratio going down, right? Because it means that buyers are no longer bidding 10% over, 5% over, whatever, just because now they're actually looking a little bit more critically at those prices and saying, well, this seller is out of line. This is not even remotely close to where the market is. I'm still going to write an offer anyway because I want the house, but I'm not going to write it, 5% over the list price anymore. And I actually see this as a welcome change. I've talked about this in the past. In other parts of the country, the Bay Area specifically, Northern California, it is very common to just underprice houses by several $100,000, and just everyone understands that it will go for more money than the list price. I think that's kind of a crummy way to do business. I don't like it. So I'm glad to kind of see this maybe heading back down towards this 100% figure. Historically, we generally tend to be in the high 99s is where we tend to ride on average. Most agents are pretty good at pricing their houses and tend to price right towards where they think it's going to go. Now, our days on market did something kind of interesting. We've had a couple points here where we've dropped to just these really low numbers of days on market. That is a sign that we just don't have enough inventory, something I still agree with. Even our days on market on our luxury end took a little bit of a dive last week, right? I think it's important to understand and look at this as a bit of a very quick measurement of market health. And the way I see this is this market has gotten a little bit more competitive, especially in the past week. Now, the good news is because of these prices that have eased off, but remember, this is 4 to 6 weeks ago, we're seeing our affordability of a median priced home tends to be trending, right? It's trending in this area here. It's trending in this 110 to 120% range. It's been that way for over 3 months now. I feel like this is really the steady, happy range for our market, right? Is to be between these two data points. What would concern me is if we saw this graph just keep going up and almost even maybe accelerating upward. And just as a reminder for everyone, what does this graph tells us? This compares the affordability or the payment on a median priced home from 2018 in June to today. And where are we? We're about 10% higher than we were back then. Between 10 and 20% higher. I think that is sort of the happy zone for our market at the moment. And I think if we stay in this range for now, obviously inflation could result in this going higher. But I think as long as this doesn't accelerate out of control, this isn't a housing market that I feel like is overpriced and sort of cantilevered out there. Now, finally, we have our prevailing mortgage rates. What happened last week? If you look back here, basically since about the end of April, we've been right around 3%, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher. We eased off slightly last week. I mean, this is pretty much just where we've seen. This feels like a steady state. I know a lot of people feel like this is going to go to 3.5% by the end of the year. My attitude on that is I think we're just going to have to wait and see. Predicting interest rates is not easy. It's difficult. This says that two things. When interest rates stay steady, I usually feel like this means that the Fed is actually working very hard to control this. The second is I think it means that generally the market feels like the inflation that we are experiencing right now is a temporary blip, that it is not a permanent situation. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's what the market thinks. And that's why the rates have remained steady. I want to thank everybody for watching our videos. We really like doing these. I think if you're a buyer or a seller in this market, keeping informed is the most important thing you can do. Ask questions of your agent. And if you feel like if you're working with an agent, you don't think you're going to get good answers, perhaps it's time to make a switch. If you have any specific real estate questions, we'd love to hear about them. You can put them in the comments or you can reach out to us directly. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Stay tuned on Friday for our first-time buyer market update, and we'll see you really soon.